The fastest way to make your before and after story sound impressive is also the fastest way to make a serious buyer stop trusting you, especially in markets where six-figure decisions face committee review. The problem is not the transformation. The problem is what happens when your proof starts sounding too smooth, too linear, and suspiciously free of cost, delay, or resistance. You have seen this pattern before. A company was stuck, then your service arrived, then everything improved. Neat story. Clean arc. But the cleaner it sounds, the more a B2B audience starts asking what you left out, and whether the result can happen for them, with their budget, team size, and slower approval process. When you overstate a before and after, you do not just weaken a post. You create friction across your funnel. Sales has to defend it in calls and follow-up emails. Prospects compare it to reality. Existing customers wonder whether you are describing the same work they actually bought, or a polished version that never really existed. A strong transformation story does not need to sound dramatic. It needs to sound believable, transferable, and specific enough that your audience can picture the path from before to after, including who did what, over roughly how long, and under what constraints. In B2B, before and after is not a makeover story. It is a decision story. The before is the operating condition before a change. The after is the condition after a specific intervention, measured over time, inside clear constraints, like a 90-day rollout, one region, or a 5-person marketing team. Most overclaiming is not malicious. It comes from compression. A real client story has timing, setbacks, stakeholders, and trade-offs. Marketing trims the mess to make it readable, then trims again to make it exciting, until the proof no longer feels human, and the surviving version sounds more like ad copy than evidence. Sophisticated buyers do not expect perfection. They expect signal, the kind that survives scrutiny from finance, sales, and operations. When your story includes the hard edges, the result sounds more real, not less persuasive, because realism suggests there is nothing important being concealed. Under every case study, a buyer is quietly asking 3 things. What exactly changed? Why did it change? And which parts of that result depend on conditions I may not share, like budget, leadership support, or brand awareness? If you answer those, trust goes up fast. 3 elements do most of the work in a believable transformation story: baseline, timeline, and mechanism. Remove one, and your audience starts filling the gap with doubt, guesses, and counter-explanations, which is exactly where skepticism grows in enterprise buying conversations. The before state needs detail, not drama. Instead of saying the client had no strategy, show the operating reality. Maybe posting was inconsistent, attribution was muddy, sales and marketing used different language, and no one owned distribution after publishing, so even good ideas died after week 1 or 2. Then define the intervention with equal discipline. What changed in process, positioning, cadence, distribution, or measurement? If your story skips the middle and jumps straight to results, it sounds like magic, and buyers do not purchase magic in enterprise settings. They purchase methods they can inspect, question, and operationalize. Notice the difference. One version says content transformed demand generation. The stronger version says the team shifted from founder-only posting to a documented weekly thought leadership system tied to sales conversations and customer objections, which is concrete enough for another team to imagine testing next quarter. This is the first big shift. Buyers trust mechanism more than magnitude. If they can see how the change happened, they do not need you to inflate how huge it was. Clarity reduces the need for superlatives, and often makes a modest 20% lift feel more credible than a vague 300% claim. Now bring in data, but anchor it. A claim like leads doubled sounds strong until a buyer learns the number moved from 4 to 8. The improvement may still matter, but without baseline context, the story invites skepticism instead of interest, because scale changes how people interpret significance almost immediately. Try this instead. Demo requests increased from 4 per month to 8 over 90 days after the company rebuilt its category narrative and repurposed founder insights into weekly LinkedIn posts and sales follow-up assets, without adding paid spend or hiring a larger content team during that window. That version gives your audience something to evaluate. They can judge whether the baseline resembles theirs, whether 90 days fits their cycle, and whether the content changes are practical. Honesty does not weaken persuasion. It gives persuasion something solid to stand on, especially when a buyer needs to defend the decision internally. Another place teams overclaim is the outcome itself. Real client work often produces uneven progress. Maybe engagement rises before pipeline does. Maybe win rates improve in one segment first. If you only tell all or nothing stories, your proof starts sounding manufactured, because real operating improvements usually arrive in stages, not all at once. Counterintuitively, a little friction can increase trust. Mention that approval cycles slowed publishing for the first month. Mention that leadership alignment took longer than expected. Mention that one channel underperformed while another became the real growth lever, such as LinkedIn outperforming webinars by a factor of 2. Keep the frictions that explain reality: slow approvals, uneven adoption, and delayed attribution. Those details make the eventual result more credible because they sound like the actual operating conditions inside most B2B teams, especially in organizations with cross-functional reviews, long cycles, and imperfect reporting. Words create overclaiming long before numbers do. Completely transformed, game-changing, overnight, explosive, and unmatched all push your story toward disbelief. Serious buyers hear language like that and start discounting the rest of the message, because exaggerated vocabulary usually signals weak evidence, selective framing, or both. Replace inflated adjectives with observable facts. Faster becomes reduced from 6 weeks to 3. Better becomes easier for sales to use, for example with reply rates improving from 4% to 7%. Stronger becomes more consistent from quarter to quarter. Remember what a B2B buyer is doing with your story. They are not applauding your writing. They are stress testing a decision, often with procurement, legal, and a skeptical VP in the room. Every sentence either reduces uncertainty or increases it. Precision lowers uncertainty. Overclaiming raises it. You can almost hear the internal response. If this outcome is real, tell me the setup. Tell me the team size. Tell me the time frame. Tell me whether paid spend changed too. And tell me what stayed difficult, because every serious initiative leaves some problems unresolved. Context is not a disclaimer. It is part of the proof. Team size matters. Market category matters. Sales cycle length matters. Existing brand awareness matters. Without context, your audience cannot tell whether the result is impressive, ordinary, or irrelevant, because a 10 demo increase means different things in SaaS, consulting, or manufacturing. Here is the twist. The more complex the buying decision, the less your audience needs a heroic story and the more they need a usable one. Utility often outperforms drama in B2B content because risk is the real backdrop, and buyers are trying to reduce regret, not just feel inspired. A heroic story says the client won because your method is exceptional. A usable story says the client improved because these actions changed these conditions over this time frame. One flatters the brand. The other helps the buyer think, compare, and estimate whether similar conditions exist in their own business. Use a 5-part sequence. First, define the starting condition. Second, name the intervention. Third, show the timeline. Fourth, quantify the change with baseline context. Fifth, note the constraints or supporting factors that shape the outcome, such as budget limits, founder reach, or a seasonal demand spike. On LinkedIn, this means your post starts with a concrete before, not a victory lap. Then you describe the shift, the timing, and one measurable result. Finally, you add a line about what made the outcome possible, or limited it, so readers can judge transferability instead of just admiring momentum. In case studies, give each section a job. Background creates relevance. Challenge establishes the before. Approach explains the mechanism. Results report the movement. Lessons learned protect credibility by showing what you would repeat and what you would adjust, which often matters more than a polished success headline. If you want a simple operating checklist, use these rules: define the baseline, name the mechanism, and include one honest limiter. Those 3 moves eliminate most accidental overclaiming before it reaches the page, the sales deck, or the founder's next celebratory LinkedIn post. Do not say results improved. Say what the starting condition was. Monthly inbound volume, average response time, post frequency, conversion rate, or sales adoption. A baseline turns a claim into a comparison your audience can actually evaluate, whether the number starts at 2%, 20%, or 200 leads. Do not imply the result emerged from talent alone. Show the operational lever. A new message architecture, tighter content cadence, customer-led proof, stronger distribution, better follow-up, or cleaner measurement. Mechanism is what makes the story reusable, because buyers can test a process even when they cannot copy your brand exactly. A limiter might be small sample size, a short measurement window, strong founder visibility, existing customer demand, or heavy internal alignment work. Adding one limiter does not undercut the result. It tells your audience you know what responsible proof looks like, and that you are not pretending every outcome generalizes perfectly. Keep showing your work. That is the standard serious buyers trust, remember, and